Imagine you're a new student here at Vanderbilt University. It's August, but you're in the South, so it's still extremely hot. It's the very beginning of the semester, so you're still getting situated. You already have your books and materials for the semester, but have yet to walk around and get to know your new home in Nashville, Tennessee. You plan to get out today and walk around campus to see and get accustomed to where everything is. You first look outside your window and instantly see a bunch of squirrels playing in the trees. When you leave your building, you also see a bunch of squirrels on the ground, searching for acorns and other food. As you walk around campus, especially if you walk past land, you see squirrels hanging out around trash cans, searching for leftovers. In the case that on your journey you walked past one of Vanderbilt's lawns, Alumni, Central, Commons, or Magnolia, you definitely saw a bunch of birds, squirrels, and chipmunks coexisting peacefully. At this point you start to wonder, why are there so many squirrels here? You do a little research and find that Vanderbilt boasts a 3-to-1 squirrel to student ratio. In 2020, we had an undergraduate enrollment of about 7,000 students. Multiplying that number by 3, that would mean there are about 21,000 squirrels on our campus alone. Incredible. I'm not sure where that statistic came from or who wrote it, but I believe it. Vanderbilt has also publicized this statistic, so I'm going along with it too. Anyways, the squirrel is basically our mascot. The squirrels here are probably better known than Mr. Commodore. After I did those simple calculations of how many squirrels our campus is home to, I got to wondering how so many squirrels were able to flourish here. Not only is Vanderbilt in an urban area of Nashville, but 21,000 squirrels in one place just seems like they are overpopulated. I wouldn't be surprised if competition and food scarcity were prevalent among our squirrel population. I decided I wanted to do further research on squirrels and see if I could find anything that might explain my question. How are all these squirrels able to coexist here? My name is Keelan Watson, and I'm a sophomore here at Vanderbilt University, and this is another episode of Let's Talk About Science Stuff. I decided to do some research and came across an interesting research study done on the brain evolution of squirrels. Written by scientists from the University of Edinburgh, the study explains how the brains of rodents, specifically squirrels, have transformed over time and how these changes have affected the species. I felt like this would be a good start to answering my question, so I dove right into the study and began reading. For reading this study, I learned a lot of information about squirrels. The research team utilized computed tomography scans, CT scans for short, of the skulls of 38 different species of rodents. This included both squirrels and their cousins, the mountain beaver. They chose to use squirrels for this study because they claim squirrels are the third most diverse extant family of rodents, and that they also exhibit a diverse range of lifestyles. These researchers found that two parts of the brain, the neocortex and the petrosal lobule, had both grown in size over time in squirrels. The neocortex is primarily responsible for motor skills and vision, but is also known to control memorization. Results from the study showed that mountain beavers had a smaller neocortex region than their arboreal cousin, the squirrel. An arboreal species is simply any species that lives in trees. It was also noted that fossorial species, which means ground-dwelling, like the mole, also have smaller neocortex regions, but this is largely attributed to how there is limited light on the ground, so having strong vision is not as important to moles as it is to squirrels. This is also a prime example of evolution, where species evolve to grow developments that are essential to their living situations. On the other hand, the petrosal lobule is responsible for eye movement stabilization and head coordination, which I would assume are extremely important to squirrel survival. The petrosal lobule was also found to have grown over time in squirrels, but was found to be comparatively much smaller in ground-dwelling rodents, like the mole. Researchers of the study concluded that since tree-dwelling squirrels depend on strong tree-climbing skills, this works hand in hand with why they would need stronger eye stabilization, and why the petrosal lobules would be so much larger in arboreal species than fossorial species. Overall, fossorial animals were found to have relatively smaller brains compared to arboreal animals like squirrels, which the researchers assumed to be associated with their specialized digging lifestyle. I took further action and decided to reach out to the lead researcher of this study, Dr. Ornella Bertrand, a research associate at the University of Edinburgh. I wanted to have a conversation about the study and wanted to learn more about how she got involved with squirrels in the first place and the experiment that she completed. Here's how our conversation went. So that brings me to my first question, actually. How did you become interested in this topic and to get started on this study?
So for this study, basically during my PhD, I studied my project was to study the brain evolution of rodents.
Okay.
So in general, and we quickly realized how big that project would be because, there are a lot of rodents. As I said, I think in the introduction, there's 40% of mammals diversity are rodents. So my project certainly became quite too much. And so I decided to focus mainly on squirrels and close relatives because they showed a very wide array of ecological habits.
Yeah.
You have arboreal, gliders, etc. And I started to be interested in what the relationship between the brain and the part of the brain with locomotion was in general in mammals. And I was like, oh, that would be cool if I can apply it to the group I'm studying.
Yeah.
So I found actually when I was starting to think about it, when you're a researcher, actually you get ideas or hypotheses and you're like, okay, is it completely, makes no sense. I need to see if other people have thought about this before. And so I found some research that was done, now it's going to be 40 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they were starting to already look at that. So it kind of inspired me to kind of look at this topic. And during my PhD, I looked at that kind of question, but I didn't use the statistical tools that I use in this paper. So it basically in this paper, I wanted to really show statistically that there was something with how locomotion is influencing brain size and different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
Basically.
So my next question is, what are some of the behaviors that squirrels exhibit that are representative of their brain growth? For example, I would say that one example of their intelligence is their ability to steal food. And as far as safety, they are able to evade dangerous situations to where in the case that they're in a situation where they might be in danger, they of course have the means to escape. I would say that's just common knowledge of squirrels, but as you've done research on them, were you aware of any behaviors that were representative of their developed intelligence?
So you mean yeah, I agree with you. They're very good at they have a very good memory. They can bury apparently I think some nuts and then find them months later where they were before. So they're very intelligent in that way. And so in terms of the evolution of squirrels through time, compared to the fossils, the only thing I can really say is that when squirrels appear 30 million years ago, the closest relatives at the time, they don't have the same size neocortex. So the neocortex, that's where you have memory, that's where we can say the center of intelligence, let's say. And so you have more behavior, more complex behavior that can be present if you have a bigger neocortex.
Right.
And so the closest relatives to squirrels don't have such a big neocortex, but they're very ancient, through time, there has been a clear increase of the neocortex in all groups of mammals, not just squirrels, humans, of course, primates, whales. It's just very interesting how the neocortex just becomes bigger, so it becomes more complex. And the question is why? Why are all those animals are becoming, let's say, more intelligent? And so for squirrels, it seems that it could be related to the fact that they became arboreal really early. And so what I was saying in the paper basically is that when the brain become bigger, some part of the brain that are related to vision, to be able to, for example, you see a branch far away and you want to jump on it. One aspect that's important is to have a good, I would say, reflex, coordination of your eye movement, being able to see the branch and be okay, I better not miss that. And so those kind of functions that are in the neocortex and also in a part of the cerebellum, in the petrosal lobules, they're very important when you're in the trees. And so it's probably not the case for all groups who have had an increase in the neocortex. For example, in carnivores, cats and dogs,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why. It's probably because they became better at hunting all those herbivores, but that's another story. So what I'm saying is like, like they became more intelligent, and I'm going to put quotation marks between that. Like they became, more aware of their surroundings and stuff because of their choice. I mean, not their choice, because they became arboreal. So when you look at like the mountain beaver, that's closely related to them, which, he has a smaller brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like he's less intelligent. It just means like, when you're underground, you might need less vision.
Right.
So maybe your neocortex gets smaller just because it's very expensive to maintain a big brain. Like we eat so much and we have to eat so much because our brain is taking everything.
Right.
Like the first organ that serves itself when you eat food is your brain. It needs that glucose to be able to function because your brain just basically like controls the entire body.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So,
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. It's really cool, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I also decided to reach out to Professor Philip Bateman, who works in the Department of Environment and Agriculture at Curtin University in Australia. Professor Bateman wrote a similar research study that involved squirrels, but focused on their responses when coming in contact with humans. His study, based in New York City, found that when people acted normally and walked on paths, avoiding eye contact with squirrels, they were unbothered and stayed in their place. However, when people started looking and walking towards the squirrels, most squirrels took off and ran away. This is a perfect example of minding your business. Anyways, I reached out to Professor Bateman to have a short interview on his opinions on my research and if his experience had overlapped with my topic. I learned that he agreed that squirrels are very smart individuals and that he had actually experienced some situations that were representative of squirrels being so smart. Not really scientific, but I just want to see if you had known or noticed any like behaviors that squirrels had maybe developed or shown that kind of were representative of them being pretty smart, per se.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very intelligent animals, and that's one of the reasons why they do very well in urban settings.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen squirrels, gray squirrels in Florida, the University of Central Florida campus, which sit outside the library where there's a series of rubbish bins.
Okay.
People would come out from the library or the cafe inside. And I would observe as the squirrels can't open the bins themselves because there's like a flipped lid.
Yeah.
But they would jump into the bin if someone drops trash into the bin.
Okay.
But I noticed that if someone was carrying an empty coffee cup, like an empty cardboard coffee cup, and dumped that into the bin, the squirrels would pay no attention.
Okay.
But if they dumped in like what might have been a sandwich wrapper or a bag of chips, the squirrels recognized that trash as being of a different value and would dive into the bin as the rubbish went in.
Yes.
And then they'd sit in there quite happily eating the rubbish until someone else came along to put some rubbish in, and then they'd jump out of the bin with their food.
Right.
And I've actually noticed something similar here in Australia, where we don't have squirrels, but we have a species of crow, the Australian raven, that also hangs out on the campus here. And it has a much lower flight initiation distance. In other words, it moves away from you when you're much closer. If you're carrying something in your hand and it recognizes as potentially food.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't done anything with this data, but we carried out a very simple experiment where we walked past ravens either carrying a mobile phone in our hand or a coffee cup or like a white paper cardboard coffee cup, or a white sandwich packet. And we noticed that they moved away from us because they were not interested or they recognized us as potentially coming to disturb them if we were carrying the phone or the cup. But if you were carrying the sandwich wrapper, they would think, well, potentially this is someone who's going to drop some crumbs for me, so they would allow much closer approach.
Right.
So that's very typical of urban animals that adapt, is that they, although they still avoid us, although they still move away, they alter their decision based on what they might potentially get out of it.
As you probably noticed, I was very excited during that last conversation. The behaviors Professor Bateman described were exactly what I was looking for, and they definitely were representative of how smart squirrels can be. Lastly, I sought out to interview one more person who I believe will be crucial to this study, Vanderbilt's very own squirrel whisperer. Also a sophomore here at Vanderbilt, Tingyu Zhang, who goes by Garfield, has an undeniable passion for squirrels. Despite 50% of his Instagram posts being squirrel-related, Garfield is well known around campus for his hobby and has even had a Vanderbilt article written about him. In our interview, I asked him a few questions about his passion for squirrels, his take on my dilemma, and if he had had any notable experiences with squirrels that would be representative of their high intelligence. This is how our conversation went. Okay, so my first question is just, how did you get this hobby of squirrel whispering? Like, when did you realize that you had this gift?
So it's COVID, and there's not a lot of human interaction, and I stay in Nashville over the summer because of travel restriction, and I got very lonely, and like during Halloween, I saw Vandy for the first time, and I throw a pumpkin at her, and then we become friends.
Yeah.
It is amazing how squirrels can remember humans.
You kind of described your first interaction. Like, what is your process of approaching squirrels? Because I know usually when I see them, they just run away or
So it was a few specific squirrels that I know of, and I'm sure they know me because they would not run away when they see me sometimes. Well, on the opposite, they will come run towards me when they see me from the tree. Yeah. But there are other squirrels that run away from me just like everyone else. So it's just a few squirrels near the library lawn that I'm more familiar with. And so, well, at the beginning, I just, sit on the grass and minding my own business, but the squirrels, starting Vandy, was hanging around nearby. So later I kind of put some nuts in my pocket, and when the squirrels came, I can feed them. Yeah. And some squirrels are bolder than the others, and some squirrels will climb on and other squirrels, when I think squirrels have a very good ability to learn from each other, because if one squirrel can get nut from my hand, the other squirrels that are watching can do that as well. And there's some very funny thing, because there's one squirrel that stand up when sees me, so I feed it a lot. And when other squirrel sees that I feed a squirrel that's standing up a lot, they gradually all started to stand up when they are wanting nut. And so now all the squirrels would stand up when seeing me. That was pretty fun to watch, because normally they don't do that. And it is still very amazing how they learn from each other. I know that you spend a lot of time with squirrels. You have a lot of experience with them. Do you have any ideas of them performing actions that would reveal them being smarter than for say beaver or so squirrels would we often see squirrels digging or burying nuts.
So that
when we see them burying nuts, there's times that they are just pretending to bury nuts because other squirrels are watching, because squirrels will steal the nuts others bury. So that's pretty amazing, because squirrels can when some other squirrels are watching, the squirrels will pretend to dig nuts just to confuse the other squirrels, and they will hide squirrel elsewhere. I saw that, and it was very shocking. So that's cool. Do you have any other examples? That's exactly what I was looking for. And in the standing up example, how they learn. From others. And also there's a how their memory is really great, because there's one time that I put nut on my left shoe, and the squirrels only that day, and the squirrels will like come there, and they will like, I think from like smell that there's not on my left foot, so they will eat there. But
Yeah.
the next day when I didn't put anything there, the squirrels will still come to that place because
Wow.
the only explanation is they remembered, like they are not only finding nuts
Yeah.
with,
But like remembering where they got it from.
yeah.
Okay.
Another one is how they are like very alarming in the nature, like when when there's a hawk flying around. Like before I even saw the hawk, the squirrels, if the squirrels are like jumping,
They were aware of it.
towards,
Yeah.
then I know there will be a hawk coming, and then I look around and there's like really a hawk.
Yeah.
Like their community,
Like, whoa, yeah.
yeah, their communication skill is like very great. And one time I tried to like I chose a YouTube video of the hawk sound, and I played that sound. The squirrels are kind of afraid, but not not directly jumping towards the tree. So I can tell that squirrels do not like only rely on.
So
like
it's just not the noise. They have other awareness. Like they actually see it.
like other squirrels wording, like the side, or maybe pay attention to the birds. Because sometimes the birds when the birds are singing or barking, the squirrels will like alarm me as well. And and the other is dogs. There are a lot of people walking dogs on campus, and when the squirrel sees dogs, they will be afraid. And when the dogs are, they will like run to the trees.
Okay.
And there you have it. In conclusion, squirrels exemplify some of these behaviors we described, primarily due to their brain size, which has evolved and increased over time. So, if you're ever walking around Vanderbilt's campus and you happen to see a squirrel, just know that squirrel's probably watching you too. They have evolved to develop great eyesight, so they are likely analyzing your every move, especially if you have food. Thank you for listening.